Happy new moon, everybody. Where the new moon, depending on who you ask, I think it's like Scorpio new moon, but also kind of Libra new moon. It's on the cusp. The moon tends to be on the cusp. It moves every 2.5 days or so. But when I think about this particular cusp, I think about all of the memes that I've been seeing of like side by side pictures of like Libra season going to Scorpio season, and I feel like two words that describe this like transition is like from iridescent to dark, and like. Not that there's anything wrong or particularly good about either of those things. They're both like encompassing of many vibes, but it's very much like moving from Libra iridescent to Scorpio dark, and like both very vibey signs, both have a lot to offer in a lot of different ways, but we're going into dark season right now, and the new moon is always this new transitional space where we have an opportunity to plant new seeds and watch those grow. And so I think that these cards are really interesting that I got today. I've got the Ironbark card, and that's in this deck, Strength card, and Chalkboard, and it says below it, Develop Your Destiny, and the Phoenix card. So also developing your destiny, and this has to do with the root chakra. So root chakra, heart chakra, strength card. And these are, so I'm going to start talking about eucalyptus. Now this is a very interesting tree. I did a bunch of research on it, particularly because it's so prevalent in California, because it was imported, I think, around the late 1800s. They started importing this tree for different things, like because it does have amazing like medicinal properties. It can be really helpful for respiratory disease and like more emotionally speaking, for like moving emotions through you and for having the courage to move through them. It's a particularly strong barked tree. It's strong and fibrous, and so it was thought that it could be brought here and cultivated because of in California generally it's just low brush and not many like trees. It's like brush, and there's the winds of the ocean whipping over the whole state pretty much. So these trees were imported to, first of all, to make places prettier and to give it an air of a different place that it was. Like they're prevalent in Australia. They do well in drought, so they do well in places like California. But what happens is they block out the sun from a lot of other plants, and they emit this oil that tends to get rid of other plants around them, so they don't exist well necessarily with the native plants of California, but yet you see them everywhere here. And so they're a really beautiful tree and a helpful tree, but it turned out that they actually weren't so good for building or for laying railroad tracks because they warped. And so now we're just inundated with these trees, particularly in California, and they kind of catch fire more easily. They block out the sun from other plants, and it's this interesting thing that like we are playing so heavily with the eucalyptus. So I'm very interested in this card and how it's like contributing to all of the things that are happening here. Particularly the state being on fire at least once a year, if not multiple times a year, and how we are collectively dealing with that. It's not super easy. Some other things that I wrote about the eucalyptus family, there's hundreds of varieties, and they're said to be giving us, like helping us with leadership, clarity, goals, focus, and healing. They have their flowers emit like a lot of pollen, which calls in pollinators, which ultimately helps them reproduce more. And they are extremely durable, and they have a tendency to take all of the water and all of the sunlight from where they're at, and so they can be like this towering figure, and they've done a lot to shape what we know now is the landscape of this place, when this is really just about 100 years or so in the making. So I just thought that was really interesting about this plant, and how they're strong, but they're also not really possible to be utilized in the way that people thought that they were. People thought that they were going to really capitalize off of this plant, and now this plant has just changed the structure of this place so dramatically. And also they fall, and they fall easily, and they could just knock people out all the time. So here we are in California, and we gotta watch our backs for the trees falling on us, the trees that shouldn't have been here in the first place. But also we're holding this like strength and courageousness, and how can we affect in a positive way? How can we utilize these things in a positive way, and like for clearing our lungs, helping our respiratory system, moving emotions and toxicity out of us. There's duality to everything. Nothing, I'm telling you, nothing is good or bad. It's just a culmination of all of the things that can be perceived in different ways depending on how you're looking at it. Next, I'll talk about the chalkboard card. Heart chakra. Develop your destiny. Yes. And so, what is your destiny? Does anybody, like, do you feel like you have an idea of what that is? When I think of a chalkboard, I think about like working out problems, or teaching people, or sharing ideas. So like, how are you spending the time to figure out how to interact with and move forward with what your destiny is? Like, everybody has a purpose and has something to contribute in one way or another, and it is our job to figure that out and to do it. And so if you are privileged enough to have the time, the space, the energy to figure out what your purpose is, what your destiny is, and to put energy into it, ultimately, that's not just good for you, that's good for the collective, that's good for all of us. And the way that we can do this is by tuning into our heart chakra. Our heart chakra, our magnetic center of our body. It's how we can tell what we want to repel from, or what we want to bring closer to us. And so generally, I feel like in this culture, we do not make a lot of space for figuring out what our heart wants. So it is time for us to do that. It's time for us to listen to our heart and to figure out what it wants, because there really isn't any time left. Like, every single day, this fire is getting closer and closer. The only reason that I am not on fire right now in San Francisco, and the reason why my power is not out right now, is because all the rich people live here, and the rich people get what they want. And I am blessed that the wind is blowing today and that I can breathe today, but you don't know what tomorrow is going to be like. You don't know when that smoke's going to come in. And for me, with my asthma, like, there's a serious danger of like literal death from not being able to breathe. And the more that this state catches on fire, and the more that all of these like non-native plants like aid that, the more opportunity it is for me to not live another day. And I'm not saying that like in a morbid way, but you know, Scorpio season, so get with it, death happens. But there's more incentive for me and you to figure out what you should be doing. What is your contribution? What are you talented at? What brings you joy? What do you love? How can you do that more? How can you develop that? Develop your own destiny. Develop whatever feels good for your heart, and run with it. Because is there any time left? No, there's no time. It's the Phoenix card, baby. Fire. My state is on fire. It's not just my state. Look at all of the places. Look at Chile. Look at fucking all of the places that are on fire right now. All of the places where people are protesting. They're in the streets. They're burning things down. They're not letting this status quo of capitalism and patriarchy and whatever continue. we can't. We don't have the luxury anymore. Like we're like, it's like this or death. And so that's what the Phoenix is all about. The Phoenix is linked in this deck to the root chakra. So that's like our foundation, our core, our hips, the literal part of our body that is holding us up. And this is the restructuring. This is the releasing of the past. This is like allowing yourself to learn from the past, not like forgetting that the past ever happened, but the intentional release of it via practice. Whatever it is that we need to practice. You want to develop your destiny, you got to practice. What do you want your destiny to be, or what are you called to? How are you going to practice that? Because this isn't instant gratification. This is what we have to do. We have to put in work in order to build the foundation. That's the root chakra. And this is talking about lifting our spirits, recognizing ourselves, and knowing what is right for us. I have to more comfortable. So this is like releasing any feelings of being stuck, and being able to lift yourself from the ashes of all of the bullshit that you need to leave behind. Because it is time to embody the Phoenix. It's time to embody the release of all of these things that are not serving us. Like for me particularly, I'm going to talk about scarcity, because scarcity mindset is deeply, deeply, deeply ingrained in me. It's one of my first memories, is being so conscious of scarcity in terms of money, in terms of food, in terms of housing. And the Phoenix card is saying, hey, it's time for you to like understand that yes, that is what happened, but also that is not what defines you. That is not everything about you. You can move out of that, and you can create a different reality where you believe that you can have what you need. And it doesn't have to, I'm not trying to be rich. Like, I don't care about being rich. I care about just having what I need and having enough to be able to share. And then when we more get on the page of sharing, mutual aid, all of these things, it's going to be better for all of us, not just me, all of us. So if we could just rise from the ashes, if we could just embody the Phoenix, if we could just embody whatever our destiny is supposed to be, it's all going to be so much cooler for all of us. And maybe not in reality cooler because global warming and whatnot, but we need to work together, and we need to stop being completely held down by our past and by tribal constructs that no longer serve any of us. It's time to walk into the new paradigm, and that's what the Phoenix wants. So get excited, people. The fucking Scorpio means death, and death means rebirth. So I'm excited. And here the veil is thin, and we can move between the worlds and be more powerful because of it. So look forward to seeing you next time.